Welcome to Mystic Revolution. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. We are in season 3. But before we get started with this week's episode, let's join together and do a little meditation. So please, I invite you to close your eyes. And let's just take a nice deep breath in and exhale out. And allow yourself to be here. Let whatever was going on before this time just drift away, melt away. Let any concerns for what happens after this just drift away, melt away. And let yourself drop out of thinking and headspace just down into your heart. And being with your heart, perhaps you can imagine, tune into the idea of a beautiful ball of light, illuminating your heart space, reminding you of love and how lovable you are. And out of that, if you'd like, you can drop a grounding cord or connect your own heart to the heart of the earth. And allow yourself just to ground, knowing that the heart of the earth is holding you and holding your own heart right here, right now, as we join together in conversation and learning a few things. And let's take another nice deep breath in and out. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And so here we are once again with the wonderful Wendy Wolf. And in this episode, we're continuing our conversation about conscious creation, creating things with intention, creating things consciously. Mm-hmm. And this week, we're going to talk about some really interesting things, getting in the flow, being in the dance, and also, how do you just start? So, Wendy, I would love to hear you share your thoughts on that first part, the flow. I know this is really something you love working with and is important to you.
Yes. I'm just noticing that doing these shows, I learned to clap my hands without making noise.
That's funny.
So yeah, when I was sitting with because this is such a fundamental topic that so many of us are really interested and engaged in, and giving ourselves to flow and staying and being in the flow is such an important thing. And it's a thing that's talked about. And I don't know, do you know that there's like some books on flow, like working in the flow, Susana?
Yeah. Oh,
that
absolutely.
Guy whose name I can't say. He's famous. It does occur to me. And of course, we're looking at it from the inside out, which is different than that. But there's some real overlaps in just like that artistic flow that we can get into. And our producer Rusty was just talking about how, he just spent like 6 hours and it felt like almost nothing. He's just in that creative, exciting flow. So that's a wonderful place to be creating from. And that is, we create our artistic creations, our whatever our work is, and then also our lives.
Yes.
And we just dance in that flow and the flow of creativity and the flow of being inspired. But also for our lives, being in the flow of the goodness of heaven and earth and just dancing with that is such an important part of this.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And then that begs the question, well, if I don't feel like I'm in the flow, how do I get there?
Yeah. So I would say, come to our meditations and we'll show you some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tools that help. I mean, at first it was a little gristy for me to learn and hard to learn, but now it's just like, when we started today's production, I was really exhausted, right? But it's just like I know that I can run energy in this way and shift my vibration in that way, and in the next couple hours I will have everything I need to show up and play, and then I can like let the energies go down again and rest, right?
Right.
Like that we teach this, and it's not something we can say. This is an important point. It's not something we can say how to do all the time, because it's underneath everyday consciousness practice that we have tools to help people with. I don't want it to sound like an advertisement, but this is a really extraordinary thing to have found and developed, that you and I have, to be able to reach deep in the core of ourselves and bring out gifts that we otherwise wouldn't know how to share.
Yeah. And I mean, with that, I'll just add, regardless of what's going on around you, I
Right.
think that's
That's the important
so
part.
important. We can be in the flow within ourselves, even if outside of us, the flow doesn't seem to be there. There's chaos, there's other people
Yeah.
and their energy and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's life is intense, and there's loss, and there's upset, and like that can all be happening and is valid, and it's a valid body experience, but it's not the only experience going on. There's also energy. There's several layers of energy that we can also tap into to help
Yes.
us kind of ride the waves through what's going on.
Yeah. Great.
So one of the things I wanted to say hi to in this flow thing is first just really giving ourselves to now. And we've said this lots of times before, here, now, with.
Yeah.
But like I want to go a little deeper into it, because it's so normal to be creating our lives, creating our stuff, creating our art through our history, creating through our expectations of the future, or other people's programming or expectations of us,
Mhm.
through whatever emotion or the climate of feelings we happen to be in at the time, in us or
Yeah.
around us,
Yeah.
or through our thoughts or beliefs. It should be like this, I shouldn't be like that. Like
Yeah.
these are all they're good information, but do I really want to be creating through them?
That is so important because I can think of a number of instances in my life where I created out of, let's just say, past or less than thinking or trauma or whatever it was. And the things that I was creating didn't turn out that great.
And it's not always conscious.
It's
It's
not
just
always
like the already
conscious.
always way of being,
Right.
victim or whatever.
Yeah. Right. And
Mhm.
to your point, there's the creation of like a piece of art or something like that, but like particularly in relationships, if you're creating a relationship out of a stance of lack or of unlovability or out of
Yes.
victim or whatever, it's going to have a very different outcome than coming to, which I love your phrase, be here now with.
Yes. Yes. And speaking of relation, I mean, it's just so clear with relationships. It's like I know someone very well who he came to a relationship with like, this is how women are, and this is how they're going to hurt me, and this is
Mm,
what's going to happen. Like, it's just like, it's very hard for that not to happen,
yeah.
because it's always being looked for. It's always being exacerbated. It's always the energy is they're going to hurt me like this. And that's what happened. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of us can relate to this in different ways. Oh, wait, this is
Oh,
how men are, and this is how this is what they're going to do.
well, agreed. And in that frame of mind, even things that aren't that can become that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like we're creating something that isn't even in reality or how the other person is even thinking or operating or intending.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's really hard to see. I know, I mean, I might have mentioned it before, but when Michael and I turned 10, all hell broke loose in our relationship. It was pure hell. And I'm not going to go into all of the details, but the important part is that he did stuff and I made it mean this, and then I did this, and he made it mean that. It was a disaster. And meanwhile, I was in this practice. That was 17, 18 years ago. But I was in this practice and I was trading with people, and they're like, I know, Wendy, it feels like this, but it is this.
Right.
And I'd be like, I can't see it. And like month after month of that for too long. And then eventually, like I stopped that story. And then eventually I could look, but it was like a year later, I could really look like, did this really happen? No.
No.
Like what it felt like, what it looked like, what everything in me said, ah, right, didn't actually, that wasn't how it was. But first of all, it was my experience. And second of all, I couldn't even look at it and I knew it because I was too afraid that it would really, really be this.
Oh gosh, that's fascinating, right?
Isn't
And I'm
it?
sure I can relate to that. Other people can relate to it too. And then you talked about the stories. We have all these stories going on.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, it's keeping us from writing, creating our own story
Yeah.
in partnership, having the true of what's actually going on in the heart and mind of ourselves and our partner or partners.
Yes.
And um yeah.
Yeah. And it's a practice, right? It's you could see like even in that story, it's like I had to heal up to being able to look at what really, really was going on. And
Yes.
I'll say here what I have later because it's so relevant, which is that within us and then into the world, I think it's so important and helpful to be, can I perceive what's really going on physically and energetically? And then can I perceive what's possible from there?
Yeah.
And then can I choose from there? And then can I act from there? And I think that's a very useful way to look at it. But it
I
all
do.
depends on, can I be with reality?
Right. I think that's so important. And the part about what's possible, because what you allow to be reality defines what's possible. And
Yeah.
so people talk about, well, unlimited possibilities, but if I've already decided that I can't have this, or my ceiling is this low, then I'm cutting out a whole bunch of amazing things and miracles that I could potentially tap into or create.
Yes. And
Yeah.
love and stuff. Yeah. And, you know, we see this. So, and we talk about it all the time in our practices. Um, that stuff comes up and out to clear. You know,
Yeah.
so we're healing, we're ourselves, we're changing, we're helping other people transition and take out the trash.
Yep.
And when the trash starts coming out, it's intense and it's easy to be just like, but I don't want to keep going. But like that's the very point where the trash is coming out and what's happening. I'm seeing through it, feeling through it, experiencing through it. And it's the very time I want to stop at the worst time. So if I let it keep going, then it's just okay, that's just like a horrible minute there. But if I let it get stuck, then I start to experience it through it. I start to asphyxiate in it. I start to become it and I start to create through it. And that's why I
Yeah.
bring it up now. You know, it's like sometimes the very worst things are like, and they get stuck right where we're trying to create something totally different.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
it's a matter of keeping in the flow, staying in the flow. And we've talked about this before, but from this perspective, I hope it could be heard differently. What do you want to say?
oh, well, I'm thinking about the part about getting stuck because sometimes you realize you're stuck or you're like, wow, I've been doing the same thing or feeling the same way for weeks and weeks. How do I get back into the flow? How do I kind of kickstart this? And I mean, I can think of a few ways, just from like a creative artistic perspective. Sometimes just, you know, allowing yourself to throw up on a page or
Mhm.
or make as a vocalist, just make whatever crazy sounds are in you rather than trying to make it be something. And so how might that translate into, you know, like everyday life or
I think this was the crux of it. It's like this is so important. Like I
yeah.
talk to everyone, all my groups, all my individuals. We have this concept called growth periods.
Yes.
That's one place to start, which is the idea that when we change within, then that change, and we change fast, and then that change has to supplant the other ways of being and the other vibrations and the other patterns into our soul, body, life, and world. And it resonates out, but that change comes slower because it's, in our soul, it's a little slow, and then our bodies, and then our world, it's like, it takes a minute.
Right.
And so it's a period of time in which the growth and change and creativity that we put within starts to show in the world.
Yes.
And when we're ready, sometimes we're not ready. And so we can still just find freedom here, and it's fine. But when we're ready, we can start, that little plant can start to be like, "Ooh, look, I can be seen more," or whatever it is. Yeah. And so that's a growth period. And what we talk about this like right away with people because it's so predictable. And one thing is that it's helpful to understand that this is what's going on, because it could be just like, what's going on? Ow, ew, yum. What is going on? This is different. This is different in my body and stuff. And it's just helpful to know, oh, this is a growth period. Like, so just, recognizing, oh, this is what they're talking about. And we all do this all the time. We change our minds, we change our hearts, and things change, but we're becoming faster at it, and we're conscious about it, and it helps to get conscious about what that change feels like. So we change, recognize what it is, and then also recognize what it's calling for. Oh gosh, I'm just craving broccoli. Oh, I want to go out dancing. Oh, I really need more sleep. Like, whatever it is. Oh, like, that's because my body's healing. That's because I'm shifting my vibration. Like, I need to move, or I need to stop moving, or whatever. I need it. And so can I allow that?
Yeah, I think it's so important to account for those periods, the growth period, the transition period. We talked a little bit about it when we did the conversation of the great work as a framework to look at. It's the transition point between the different phases that allows for the alchemy.
Yes.
Right? I'm not saying people can't be like, oh, I want to change, and then suddenly they're that. That's definitely possible. But for some of the things that have stuck around for a long time, right, that we've held on to for a long time, or ingrained when we were younger, or whatever, we have to allow time. We have to allow for the growth so that we can really embody it. So it's not just a spiritual concept. It's not just an idea. It's that union of the physical and the spiritual, of the energetic and the all mind, body, spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Realized.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then also for growth periods, I find it helps to utilize the tools that you can enjoy in the meditations, to be able to actively engage the change and the flow within, and bring in the comfort, and take out the trash in conscious ways. It's really helpful. So that's growth period. And then also, I do like to distinguish what we started with stuff comes up and out to clear. That for me, that's different than a growth period. That's stuff coming up and out to clear, and it's usually disgusting stuff, because that's why I want to get it out.
Right.
Had enough of this.
Oh boy.
So these two things come with change, and there's nothing wrong. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah. So anything else about that, Susana?
No, I'm just going back to the idea of flow. The flow there's the flow of the creation, but also the flow of getting rid of the disgusting stuff, the flow of the growth period. It's all part of the same flow. There's different energies working, of course, but it really is it's like a river, right? And some parts are calm and some parts are rough, but we're going down the river and we're going to get there. And
and sometimes the mud gets lifted up, and sometimes it runs clear, and there's nothing wrong. It's all just it's life. It's part of it. Gets filed under very lifelike.
Very lifelike. Well, with that, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk more about this.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey everyone, just a friendly reminder that on the first Tuesday of every month, we hold a Mystic Revolution meditation, and you're invited. Just go to our website and you'll find the link. We look forward to seeing you then.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about conscious creation, and we've been talking about flow. And I know, we've been talking about how to move through transitions and transformation. And so let's get into the topic of shifting and changing. Can you share a little bit more about that, Wendy?
Yeah, I think the next part I'd love to talk about is, that whole where we started. I was saying, can we create from nothing?
Yeah.
Can we create from like not the past or the future? And I we can clear the whiteboard. We can we don't have to paint on top of all 30 layers of other people's pictures. We can clear the whiteboard, and in the practice that we enjoy, there's a lot of ways to do this, and it fits into life. It fits into taking human bites. Somebody who talks about this in very extreme ways. I look back, I had read Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan stuff, a long time ago, and he talks about erasing personal history. Mm. And that is a lot of what we work. It's just that their pictures are, you get in a box and you stay there, which is great. But I'm not signing up.
Yeah.
Right. Good for them.
Right.
There are other tools to do it, but the effects on the erasing personal history are extraordinary. And so I just wanted to bring up this Don Juan, who, by the way, continues to get more wise the farther I go along. So Don Juan talks about that just telling our story over and over holds all that stuff in place.
Yeah.
For us and all the people around us. Like if we stay around those same people, it's very hard to change. Yeah. And so some people have trouble with the geographic solution, but sometimes it really helps to get away from everyone who knows who you are and what you're going to do any given day. Yeah. And take a break. I used to do this a lot, just short times into the woods, because the trees don't tell me who to be.
Yeah.
And it helps me.
Totally. That's part of the reason I live in the woods.
They're very validating.
They're very good.
And so I'll just read one of his quotes. He says, "A warrior doesn't need personal history. One day he finds it no longer necessary and he drops it."
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I want to be clear, when we're talking about erasing history, it's not invalidating things that happened in your past. It actually is, in our work, let's get down in there and heal it. So it's not impacting how we're living today anymore. Mm-hmm. And then you can stand and be that warrior without a history, kind of the past shaping, your future, or how you're showing up in the world, the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, and not determining what happens in the future.
Yes. It's just huge. This, we talked about this already. This happened before, so it's going to happen again. Or this happened before, so I have to be miserable today.
Yeah.
But it's not happening now. But if I'm miserable today, it's like it's happening now. And sometimes it's an invitation for more of it happening now, instead of being just like, I don't want to play this game anymore. I'm going to a different place, doing a different thing.
Yeah. And before, when you were talking about this, about stories, and you went back and you're like, well, did this actually happen? I know that I've used that tool, work with it with clients, but also myself. Did it actually happen that, I I was a failure, or that I did something shameful, or whatever it is. And the truth is, no, it didn't actually happen. I was a kid, or whatever, someone else's energy, the situation,
Their story.
their story was imposed upon, right? And am I going to choose to keep imposing that story, even though it wasn't mine to begin with? I mean, that's another one, right? Like, if this is, why am I continuing to live someone else's story and issues when they actually don't apply?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's this extraordinary thing, whatever practices we utilize. And here's the thing, I think it really does take an active, energetic work. I think that just trying to bury the dead bodies, I found doesn't really work very well.
No.
They just keep rising up. And
Wendy, remember?
I know. And
Yeah.
like if somebody listening has found that talk therapy works, that's great. But what I found is that I've worked with a lot of people who have done a lot of talk therapy, and then the great part is a lot of that blah 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 is out of the way, but then there's the energy to clear.
Yeah,
And it can go
exactly.
real fast because all the thoughts are changed. Like we don't know we think that anymore. We're not thinking it. We're not feeling it. We're not, but just like the patterns are still there. And it really helps to just wipe that whiteboard. And it doesn't hurt or take so long because it's been handled emotionally
Yeah.
and cognitively already.
Yeah. We may be at a place where we need to end this episode, but we are
Yeah.
still in the midst of this conversation. There's a lot more to talk about
Yes.
and share about dancing in this energy, about really like how do you really get started, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, so much more.
Yes. So the next conversation, I'd love to talk about like what shift and change, what active creation requires, what
Sure.
helps us to have a face and be the space that changes happen.
Okay. Well, that's what we will talk about next time. Thank you all for being here with us. Let's just do a little meditation out, and then we'll let you go get on with your day. Just grateful that we're all here together now. Thank you for being here. And go ahead and just tune back into your heart space and allow that beautiful ball of light or energy to illuminate. See if you can make it get bigger. And as you do that, remembering your connection of your own heart to the heart of the earth. And you are a grounded, sovereign being. And that if anything we've talked about resonates with you, allow that to be. And anything that doesn't, just let it go. Everything else, just let go. I mean, this is part of the process of being in a flow, recognizing when it just doesn't matter, isn't necessary for us right now. We can just let it go and move on with that which really serves our highest and best good. And so with that, one more nice deep breath in and out. And we thank you again for joining us in the Mystic Revolution. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
And that concludes this portion of Mystic Revolution. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to get notified of new content. And don't forget to like and share. Join the Mystic Revolution. Click on the link in the description to get more information or visit themysticrevolution.com. Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
We have so many crazy places we can go.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast. Yeah, this is going to be a fun season.
Yes. Right.